It's the final off day for spring training 2023 for the Cleveland Guardians. We will take a look back through the time machine today on Locked On Guardians. Some sad memories, some good memories, some wild stories. We'll have it all covered for you today on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. Over there's Justin. I am Jeff. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today, every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And we've got your team covered every day. I think I've gotten all the business out of the way. How are you feeling today, Justin? Well, do you have the shakes? Are you going through some World Baseball Classic recovery? How does this work for you?
I am. It's been a sad day. I woke up and I was like, man, there's no Guardian spring training game. There's no World Baseball Classic game. I have to watch regular baseball. Like even tomorrow or today when you're listening to this and the Guardians are back on, it's just regular baseball. It's not as fun. Peak baseball, it's going to go downhill the rest of the year. I hate to say it. It's going to go downhill the rest of the year. Now, it was a good time. If you cannot get enough of the World Baseball Classic like me, you can check out Locked On MLB after you listen to Locked On Guardians today. Sully and I did a quick live reaction or instant reaction to the end of the World Baseball Classic. I am already ready for 2026. Jeff, I hope we're doing this podcast in 2026 because I plan to record an episode with you from a World Baseball Classic game in 2026. That is my new goal. I'm going to make you record an episode while I'm at a game.
And I will be like, has the United States ever made the finals? I've already forgotten. Like like I said, the minute these things are done, they leave my mind. If anyone enjoys them, good. I'm glad you enjoy them. I'm glad that baseball is something out there that's finding fans in a variety of ways. I just wish they would stop hiring old sad sacks who don't like baseball to talk about baseball. It's just there's too many of them right now, and that is just I'm gonna get on my soapbox and be like, stop hiring people who hate baseball to talk about and sell your game. It's just so annoying how many people there are who are just things change. I'm like, sorry, old guy, get someone to change your diaper. That's what we do when my son cries. I think that's the same issue you're probably having.
If you don't think that Trout versus Ohtani is great baseball, that at bat was not great baseball, you just don't need to be watching baseball. Even take the whole World Baseball Classic aspect out of it. Just you've got the best pitcher in the game. I don't know the best pitcher, best player in the game, and another best player in the game. And they're teammates. It's just they're the top two players in the sport, and they happen to be on the same team.
Future Hall of Famers who have never gotten to face each other. Arguably, the two players who I think you can make the case have held the title best baseball player in the world for like the two guys who've held that title over the last decade, right?
And they have so many playoff wins between the two of them, which is great for them.
Yeah, it's those Angels teams are built like champions. They have been so well built with again ownership that it makes you proud to be a fan.
Yes, absolutely.
My cat even knows that this sarcasm is phony baloney and is complaining about it.
It is. And you don't have to share those people's opinions. You can they're just looking for a reaction. They just want you to be mad. Share. I saw a quote earlier tonight from Connor McDavid, who said that everybody and was talking about how can hockey do this? And did you see Trout versus Ohtani? They were talking about it. Benji Heal's comments after Mexico, Japan, he said the sport of baseball won tonight. Like there's way better quotes and takes on this you can share. You don't have to share those Putz quotes. I don't even know what Putz means anymore, but I think they're Putz. That's all I'm going to call them.
An idiot, basically.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think they just need a good diaper change. That's what helps my son. And
yeah. So before we get into kind of we said we're going to take a look down memory lane today in today's episode of Locked On Guardians. It's kind of chilling, to be honest with you, Jeff, that today was an off day for Cleveland because today is March 22nd or March 21st. It was the unfortunate 30th anniversary of the tragedy on Little Lake Nellie. So if you're not familiar, which Jeff actually, you could probably talk about it more because you were a little bit older at the time when it happened than I was, but this is unfortunately the 30th anniversary, and I don't know. I just found it very chilling that today happened to also be an off day.
You know, I remember I really enjoyed Steve Olin as a kid. Like 1992 was his final season, and you know he had that funky delivery, but it was effective. Like you go and you look, I still believe in the top 10 for saves all time, and he was only a closer for 2 years. His worst, like again, ERA isn't perfect, but if you look at ERA plus, his worst ERA plus was a 107. Like he was really effective, even though he didn't miss bats and pitch to contact. He had a funky delivery, and it worked. And he had like his final year was in 88 innings. 29 saves. You know, he was a really effective closer. And I was trying to remember like how that 92 team finished. You know, it's when I started to get interested. They were 76 and 86 that year. I think that was Lofton's second year. You had a lot of those pieces kind of coming together, like Bell and Baerga. And you saw this as a team that could potentially be fun. Like this is a team on the rise. They needed to get that they needed to get pitching, which was kind of unfortunately the story of that whole decade. But you felt good about Steve Olin at the back of that bullpen. And one of the other players, you know, Kevin Wickander, that final year, he had over 44 games, a 3.07 ERA. It was a 1.28 ERA plus. Like Wickander was really good. So you had Olin, Ted Power, Eric Plunk, Derek Lilliquist had all been effective. Alan Embree was a young kid. You know, the bullpen was coming together, and they went out and added Tim Cruz. Now, Cruz I never saw play because he had been with the Dodgers, but the three of them went out on that boating trip, and Olin and Cruz died, and Kevin Wickander never was the same. They I don't even like that season. He was just, you know, eventually they traded him, hoping to give him a fresh start. But you know, he had that great. He was great in 90. Well, 90 was a short one, but he was really good in 91 or 92. And then it just partway through the 93 season, they traded him to Cincinnati, hoping to give him a fresh start. But it essentially ended up being like three pitchers. I mean, Kevin Wickander had to live with having been through it, and it just shattered his career and his life in some regards, if you've read articles with him. But then Cruz and Steve Olin dying that day. And I mean, I don't want to seem heartless talking about just the effect on the team, but you know, that bullpen that looked like a potential strength became a weakness. Steve Olin might have been the all-time closing champion. Might have had, I don't know if that's not really a thing, but might have led this team in saves if he had been there. And then it's just the personal tragedy with a team that has had many tragedies in its history, unfortunately, with Steve Olin and Tim Cruz passing that day. And yeah, it was, I just remember like being like, what? And like, as a kid, again, when that happened, it was was it 93, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I was 11. No. Yeah, I was 11. So, you know, I wasn't fully realized person, and just being like, what, like, it, you know, it didn't feel real to a degree.
Was it Bobby Ojeda on that boat too? Was Kevin Wickander and Bobby Ojeda? I don't remember Kevin Wickander, but I remember Bobby Ojeda.
Or was Wickander on the beach? Wickander was, or maybe he didn't go. Wickander was tied to it, like, or he was best friends.
I know Bobby Ojeda was on the boat, and I know he survived.
Well.
And
okay, so
I know
let me dig up. Let me look at Wickander. He was maybe supposed to go. There was.
I remember Bobby Ojeda because I remember his career was not the same after that. He became a Mets broadcaster. While you're looking that up, I mean, I was only 4, so my memories of it are not super clear. The first time I remembered it, or I remember hearing about it and just, you know, thinking about what had happened, was after they won the 95 AL Central Division title, and they were raising the banner in center field. And I remember watching, you know, I was lucky enough my parents woke me up for it or had let me stay up to watch it, as they did many times, which is why I'm probably talking about baseball today. I remember them playing, you know, Garth Brooks, The Dance, and I remember some of the guys crying. And, you know, me being 4, I was like, I was 6 in 95. I was 4 when it happened, but the guys were crying, and, you know, 5-year-old me, I didn't understand emotions and why grown men were crying, and I didn't understand tears of joy and anything like that. But, you know, my dad had told me about what happened, and they played that song because that was kind of the song those guys liked or something. And I don't know, it's the first time I remember the memory, I guess, everything that happened. And, So my first memory of the whole boating accident had to do after the Indians had won the division title, and Charles Nagy and a bunch of other guys raising that flag and paying tribute to their friends who should have been there with them.
So I had it wrong. Wickander, well, he wasn't there, but like Steve Olin was the best man at his wedding. Steve Olin helped him get help with an alcohol problem he had, helped him go through rehab, and he had gone out with his wife. The reason I conflated it is because I knew throughout the year he was extremely troubled by it, and that he was traded to help him get a fresh start. So he actually was not there that day, but was another person who was affected by it, who had a big effect. Ojeda was the other guy out there. But yeah, it was one of those things that was just devastating for a lot of people. And yeah, like I said, so I apologize for conflating, but like Wickander ended up being a victim in his own way, just because of, that was, like I said, Steve Olin helped him get sober. Steve Olin then was the best man at his wedding. He had just come off his best career ever, and then he lost his friend in a pretty horrific way. And eventually Kevin Wickander would go to prison for drug charges and other things. Like, you could see a line that gets traced back to the effect of that day. So, I mean, the loss of life and then just the overall effect. It's in my lifetime, it's probably the most tragic event that's happened to the Cleveland Guardians / Indians at the time. Yeah,
Zach Meisel had a good piece for The Athletic. I highly recommend reading it. He kind of caught up with some members of the Olin family, especially the son, or one of the sons, and it was just a really good piece. Just kind of,
Steve Olin's son in it, I think.
Yeah, it was Steve Olin's son, Garrett, and just how he's trying to keep his dad's memory alive and everything he's gone through since then. Really highly recommend it. I think I saw on Twitter today that The Athletic's running a special on their subscriptions for like $1. So if you're already not a subscriber, I would do it for that article. Zach did a really good job just kind of tracking them down and letting them tell their story and remembering everything that happened that day. Just, super unfortunate. Makes me think of Jose Fernandez, which was also an extremely bone-chilling event. And yeah, so, best wishes to those families as those memories pop up around this time.
Bring everyone down, but we also want to remember them and give them their time. It's Cleveland baseball has a lot of high points. It has a lot of tragedies. That's just one of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna try to change the tone here a little bit the rest of the show after paying tribute to those guys and those families. Talk about retrospective prospects from the 2013 rankings. But first, Jeff, I know you love a good new sponsor. I do as well. I like our new sponsors, Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Let me tell you how many times in my life I have been stressed out about buying tickets. Indians, Guardians opening day, playoffs, concert tickets. I'm trying to get my fiance or something. Cavs playoff tickets are going to be coming up real soon. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They have killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over tickets and get hyped for all the fun at the event you're going to have. They have flash deals on last-minute tickets. They're easy to find. You can buy tickets for any kind of event. And the thing I really like is they have images, too, for the seats. I like when I'm buying my ticket on an app or any kind of service, really, I want to be able to see what the view from my seat is going to look like. So they have image reviews of every seat. They have the lowest price guaranteed. They have event cancellation protection, all that stuff. Gametime is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Don't have to plan in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. So Guardians opening day is sold out, but you could find tickets on there. Flash deals on tickets for all sports, all events near you. And using the Gametime guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference. Snag tickets without the stress of Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem your code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest priced, guaranteed. All right. I think we are lucky enough to, given how things change so rapidly on the internet these days, and things get taken down all the time, and guys lose their jobs, and sites go blank.
I mean, mine's gone. Like I'm missing so much of like scouting baseball, and I looked on the Internet Archive. And a lot of it still isn't there because I think it was behind a paywall, which meant that they couldn't always pop up.
Yeah, that's annoying. I've lost some rating that way too. But John Sickles, who I know you've heard Jeff talk about him before. We've talked about him before. Minor league ball, great writer. Doesn't tweet about baseball as much these days, but man, one of the godfathers of prospect. Yeah. To me, he is one of the godfathers of prospect writing because I remember following him early on and just all the work he did and learning from his writing and things like that and how he went about player evaluations. So today, while we continue our
when I was in college from 2004 to Ohio State, he was the guy. Maybe by 2004, Callis and Baseball America did it, but he was ESPN's only minor league writer, and that's where I first discovered him because there wasn't a whole lot for that. It was a very barren field, and it was always very exciting every time a piece of his popped up.
Yeah, he was a great writer, and he's moved on to other projects since then. But I highly recommend. He's one of my favorite writers of all time too. 2013 prospect rankings; those are still out there. Just going through this list, Jeff. I mean, I know you've seen it. Trevor Bauer, number 1, Francisco Lindor, number 2. Those guys both panned out. I mean, Bauer's Bauer, but he still had a good career. Francisco Lindor, enough said. Number 3 on that list, Dorsey's Paulino was so close to setting the record for most games played by a Lake County captain, and the Indians decided to promote him the next day or the next. If he would have played the next series with the captains, he would have set the record for most games played all time for the franchise. And they promoted him. In fairness,
he was top 3 on every. That was the top 3 for everyone.
Oh yeah,
his ceiling was immense. I saw people the thing we hear every year, which is I was trying to think who it was last year, but it's every year it's the best hitting prospect since Manny Ramirez. That always comes up.
George Valera,
yeah. So it's I hate to be no, it was Polino before that, and it was this guy before. It's actually a pretty sad list, but
it is. You want to pay special attention to on this list. Well, I mean, he had Tyler Naquin and Cody Allen on there. Those guys wanted to have good careers, but I want to say, I mean, I saw Jose Ramirez in 2012 at Lake County, but I wasn't really doing the kind of stuff John Sickles was doing. John Sickles had Jose Ramirez number 9 on his 2013 list. And listen to this description, listen to his write-up. Other sources I can't say all of it on the air because there are some interesting words in here, which is amazing. But he says he doesn't care how other sources rank him. Undersized and scouts worry, but he hits the living S out of the ball. Includes, his slash line there at low A, which was, a really good line. Controls the strike zone, makes contact, runs well, excellent defensively. Same age bracket as Ronnie Rodriguez, Luigi Rodriguez, and Tony Walters. I think, Tony Walters, who are middle and most of the time. But the last line here is what hits the most. A year from now, this may look too low if he goes Altuve on us. Boy, did he do that. He didn't do it the next year, but he went on to do it, I would say.
Yeah, and it's, like I said, it's kind of fun if you are someone who, so he's got Mitch Brown at 4, but I can tell having read his stuff, he was a big Mitch Brown mark. That was his
I was
guy
too.
In that draft. That was his high guy. Cody Allen, that's, putting him at 6 was pretty aggressive at the time. It's kind of funny seeing Ronnie Rodriguez. I immediately went, oh crud. There's a lot of Ronnie Rodriguez to Oscar Gonzalez.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that. You're right.
But isn't there the speed, the power, the arm? Oscar's got more power that he has used in game, but physical tool wise and approach at the plate, those two are very similar.
Well, I mean, Ronnie doesn't have Oscar's size, but that's not really here nor there. But you're right. No, there's a very similar feel to that profile. It's overly aggressive, but Oscar, I guess, is the good outcome of Ronnie Rodriguez. So unfortunate for him.
Santander down here at 19 when he was only 17 years old.
That's a heck of a clip right there for sure. Yeah, I really like that one. Jesus Aguilar's in there. Everybody was talking about him because he was hitting for power, but he also didn't think Aguilar was going to be a long-term solution. He had enough pop to be a useful role player, and that's kind of what he's gone on to be honest with you. He pointed out Danny Salazar, number 11, his checkered health history. How about this one? Scott Barnes, man. I had a lot of hope.
I liked Scott Barnes too. I saw that as I'd forgotten about Scott Barnes.
Yeah. What was that? Who was that the trade with was that Ryan Garko? Was that the Ryan Garko trade?
That's what I'm trying to remember, Scott.
He's got CC Lee in there, and then known as Chen Lee as a relief option at 14, Kieran Lovegrove at 15, who Kieran Lovegrove went on to
Ryan Garko. You are 100% correct.
Wow. Yeah. Never should have traded Ryan Garko. Before I was president of the Grady. Well, no, I was president of the Grady Sizemore fan club then. I was also president of the Ryan Garko fan club too.
Yeah, right. I mean, I called him Mini Hafner at the time. Like, I he's gonna. And there might not be a recent Cleveland Guardians player who fell apart quicker than Ryan Garko. Like that collapse is kind of crazy. And this is funny. So if you click on Ryan Garko, like his he must have someone who wrote his Wikipedia, because his Wikipedia is like bigger than
now.
But no, like someone has like gone super detailed with this, like season by season. Like he's got more data in his Wikipedia profile than like Jose Ramirez and Francisco Lindor combined. So
it was me. I wrote that.
It wasn't you. But it even mentions like John
back in the day.
It mentions John Sickles. Garko was seen by former ESPN reporter John Sickles as a good hitter who hit to all parts of the field, but with poor defensive instincts. So this is this might be the most ridiculous baseball profile I've ever seen on like he must and even Garko resides in Scottsdale, Arizona with his spouse Christy, whom he met in 2004. They were on their honeymoon when Garko found out the Giants had made him a free agent after 2009. He's a fan of the Los Angeles Lakers and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Like, I'm not going to say that Ryan Garko wrote his Wikipedia, but I am going to say there's a good chance that Ryan Garko wrote his Wikipedia.
Yeah, he might have. I could have written. I was a big Garko fan. I don't think I know.
But I mean, again, we're going really far off. But 829 OPS, 842 OPS, 750, 765, 120, 68, negative 20. He's only in his late 20s. It is a weird. I don't know what happened there.
Well, he was one of the few, despite his line, was one of the few successful Stanford hitters of his time.
You ready for this? Maybe we should just make this the Ryan Garko one. Awards and achievements listed at the bottom. Indians minor league player of the year. Do you know who preceded him and who succeeded him?
Okay, what year is that? Tell me. I can
2004.
2003. Travis Hafner was prior to him. Michael Aubrey.
You're breaking my heart here.
Corey Smith. Please don't tell me it's Corey Smith. Okay, well, that's good. I actually feel good about that.
It's Grady Sizemore.
Oh, come on. 2002 or 2003?
2003.
Okay.
Which means you'll never get who 2004 is, because I had completely forgot about this player. Ryan Mulhern.
The famous string of there was Ryan Mulhern, there was Ryan Garko, and there was Ryan Gillespie, the trio of Ryan power hitters that Ryan Garko was the only one. In fairness,
Ryan Mulhern that year crossed Double-A and High-A, hit 315 with a 390 on base and a 640 slugging with 32 home runs at age 24. It was a heck of a year.
We've gone further back in time than we intended to here. Yeah. So let's get the ship righted back to 2013 in just a moment here after we talk about our friends over at FanDuel.
That's right. Our good friends over at FanDuel. You know them, you love them. They're an official sponsor of the MLB and the NBA. But right now, the tournament's heating up. It's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on everything from money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA and Major League Baseball.
All right. Any other standouts from this list to you? Because, I mean, we should probably get back on track. We said we're going to go back in time 10 years, not 2003.
I mean, we got a Trey Haley, we got a Devon McClure. He talks about Tim Fedorov having a chance. That's his sleeper. I really liked him.
Who are the guys that you were
in there?
Oh, I could talk a long time. Let me tell you, if you want to talk about guys that you were high on, like not just John Sickles' list obviously is really good. Elvis Araujo is in there. I was a big Elvis Araujo guy for sure. Thought he was going to be this frontline left-handed starter. They had Dylan Howard in there, who his story was not good. We probably don't need to get into his story. It was bad.
Yeah.
he's got, Giovanni Urshela on the list, who obviously things worked out for him. But I mean, a couple guys on his other list that I'll tell you, I was high on that did not work out for me. We always talk about the guys like, Jose Ramirez. Yes. And I saw him in 2012 in Lake County, and I was like, yeah, this guy, did I think he was going to be MVP? No, I didn't. No one did. But everybody who saw him in 2012 will tell you how good they thought he was going to be. But we can tell you about, guys like that all day. But the guys I was high on from his list here, I can tell you that year, I was a big Austin Adams guy. That was before that might have been after his shoulder injury. I can't remember. He had a pretty bad shoulder issue. He was a pretty good prospect until then. So other guys on that list,
they turned. He was not a pitcher when they drafted him.
I was way too overhyped on Devon McClure. He was a good athlete. Ended up going back to Arkansas to play football. Didn't really work out for him.
Yeah,
TJ
both
House,
McClure and Howard were Arkansas commits. They stopped after those two.
Yeah. McClure did go back to Arkansas to play. But he played receiver instead of baseball. TJ House ended up having a good career.
He was pitching in my neck of the woods in independent baseball like 2 years ago.
Yeah, the Milkman. I remember. Jordan Smith is on this list. Coach. I was high on Jordan Smith.
The guy for me is Dylan Baker on that list. He's the only one who I think ever cracked my top 10. I mean,
he made the 40-man roster for a little bit.
Yeah, he was kind of, you thought he was going to be maybe some Salazar-esque, but it just, the health was never there. I also really like, I don't know if I really liked, but I was very intrigued by Felix Sterling. He was supposed to.
Can I tell you a quick story about Felix Sterling?
Yeah.
I have a great story. So I think it was 2012 was his first year in Lake County. And I can't remember where Felix Sterling is from. He is from one of the Latin countries. I don't want to get it wrong. He is from a country where it's very warm. And his first day in Lake County, it was like media day or what, it was close to when they were moving in for the first time into Lake County, wherever they were living. Poor guy didn't have a winter coat, did not know what he was in store for. One of the players' girlfriends was nice enough to go and get him a winter coat. But that poor man showed up to Lake County in April of 2012 and was not prepared for Lake County living at that time. Didn't have a winter coat, but also came back in 2013 with a lot of lost weight. Was never pitched really good, but he came back the next year and shed those pounds and really had to get a smaller coat, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. But just a story that sticks out in my mind from that time. And I could talk for a long time about Levon Washington. I was convinced Wash Time was going to be the next great Indians leadoff hitter.
Health guy. Yeah, that's a lot of health guys on the list. So the other fun thing to do if you're looking back then is look at the 2013 draft. The last time this team picked in the top 10. And it's an interesting draft because they did not have a comp pick or a second round pick, which they normally would have, because one went for Bourne and one went for Swisher. And I will say I was sitting there watching this draft because I covered it in depth, and there was a lot of interesting moments. One was Dice Kime, because no one really had him going there. That was kind of a surprise. I think it was a little bit under slot. And then I just remember getting into it with someone that I wrote with at the time, because he's like, there's no way that they can sign Adam Pletko. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they saved a crap ton of money. It'll get done. Because those who don't know, Pletko was he was the third starter with Bauer and Cole. He was the third guy. He was the heir apparent for that.
Wasn't he the Friday starter though at that time? Or
no, he wasn't the Friday.
He became the Friday starter eventually when they both were gone.
Yeah, that final year. But like, there were people when he came in that thought like he might be the best of the grouping at one point in time. Like, he just didn't develop. He kind of stayed who he was. But there was
have
definitely
a shoulder injury too.
I think so. I mean, UCLA tends to kind of run rough on guys. A lot of guys end up with shoulder injuries. And then this was also the one kind of infamous because Ross Kivett decided to not sign and go back for a senior year, which then meant they couldn't sign Heath Quinn in the 12th round, who would later go on to become a third round pick. Never made it to the big leagues, but he also had like just fun stories like Signar Loopstock, where everyone loved the name Francis backwards. Silento Siles was like maybe the fastest guy in the system. Mark Payton has bounced around for a bit. They drafted a pair of brothers. Cole Solster's bounced around. Gary Fink is a coach. Will Crow is pitching for the Pirates. It was a odd draft. I've got a few random odds and ends, but the big thing really is, they took Kyle Crockett, and that utterly failed. He was supposed to get there quickly, and then it's a whole lot of nothing.
He had a good short run. Like, there was a brief period where Kyle Crockett was a good major league. It was short, not good enough for being a 4th round pick, but
I just remember his nickname, and I don't know if it is a real nickname or one that was just amongst my friends. I think it was just amongst my friends, calling him the fetus when he came up because he was so young and he looked very young.
God, no, I mean he went by Crockpot.
Yeah, I think it was. So I think that was just us calling him that. So maybe I should apologize for putting that on. But yeah, that first year, a 1.08 ERA over 30 innings. The problem is the rest of his career only pitched 44 more innings and was really ineffective. So he came out strong and then didn't have the will to live.
Let me ask you real quick: is this because the Indians at the time got Adam Miller? That's another one we could talk about. Andrew Miller for Clint Frazier. Does that count as is this draft successful? Is this a good draft for you because they got Andrew Miller? Although, because without Andrew Miller, this draft straight up sucks. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, well, and that's the thing. Like this was my last year covering the draft before I became a national guy. So next year I'd get the job at Scout, and I just remember covering this one pretty in depth that year. I was writing for IBI. I was also writing for Chris Crawford at MLB Draft something or other. And like every week I had to do like a preview for them and a rundown. So every weekend I was writing like overly long about how guys are succeeding or failing. So like I started to get into, that's why that year I was the high guy in Aaron Judge at 17. Now I also, still wasn't high enough. I also had some complete busts up that high. I'd have to go look. I was big on Renfroe going into that year as he finally had a bust out. But it ended up being a pretty good draft. Now, one can argue the big talk of the time was that Cleveland would take Colin Moran. I would never believed it because that was like the old approach. I was on Frazier the whole time, and that's who they took. But this top 10, I mean, Trey Ball went to Boston and was probably the worst first rounder. Colin Moran for his 500 games has a negative WAR. Cole Stewart struggled. Mark Appel just got cut. Hunter Dozier has got a negative WAR. Dom Smith, Phil Bickford didn't sign. DJ Peterson never made it. It's kind of an ugly draft. A few guys broke through, like J.P. Crawford, Tim Anderson, Aaron Judge. We talked about Michael Lorenzen, Sean Manaea, some nice kind of later picks, but it is Rob Kaminsky. I definitely had Kaminsky ahead of Aaron Judge. There we go. There's the guy I couldn't think of. But it was not draft for Cleveland. I think it's a bomb. Like you can't. The front office gets credit for making that trade, but overall they had 2.3 WAR with the 5th overall pick. That's a bomb.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, Kyle Crockett ends up being the best guy, and Cole Sulcer's got a higher WAR than anybody on there, which is actually pretty amazing. I had a lot more higher hopes. I still have hope for Ben Heller. I do. He's still out there pitching. I have hope for him.
I mean, who thought Thomas Pannone would be 5th on that list? He's now over.
Yeah, I have a lot of hope for him too.
I mean, I liked him a lot too. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, he's one of the smartest pitchers I interviewed in the minors. I remember Liebs being like he wanted him to talk to Glavine. He was tempted to text Glavine and
wow,
because he thought they would get along.
Can I drive you crazy with one more connection here?
Yeah, and then I got like 3 random funny things after that.
No, go ahead. Go. I'll save mine for the end of the show.
Just 3 guys I wanted to mention just because of random funniness that stood out. One, Paul Young in the 21st round out of Central Alabama Community College. I don't know why he didn't sign because, I mean, I think he must have transferred to he started at Mississippi State, then went there. So Cleveland drafts him in 2013. No, then he did go to Mississippi State. So he didn't actually pitch that much. Only had 12 games the next 2 years. Goes to New York. He at least gets up to AA as an undrafted free agent. So probably still should have signed, which is kind of interesting. You don't see a lot of undrafted guys. Then we have Dustin Cook, who 2012, he's a 30th rounder by the Mets, a 34th rounder by the Indians in 2013, a 28th rounder by Cincy in 2014, a 36th rounder in 2015 by the New York Yankees. Ended up pitching 10 games. Drafted 4 times, played 10 games in the minors. You'd think that there was a little bit more there. And then the final pick that year, Dan Pelenin. And I'd be kind of curious to find out more on this story. Kind of fascinating because he went to Friends University, which the only pro players that they have produced were George Ayton in 1912 and Bill McGill in 1907. And they don't really have anyone in the database. Since Dan Pelenin, there's Rob Lane, Pat Gonzalez, Sean Cruz, and Austin Eggleston. It's okay. I don't know who they are either. None of them have primary franchises listed. So it's not a big college, but I say this because Dan Polenin got drafted out of high school. He has a perfect game page. Drafted in 2013, barely played in 2017 at Friends College in Wichita, Kansas. So that's just kind of a random, like, where was he the other 2 years? Why is it a barely played junior year? And that's where I always feel bad. So this is my soapbox moment. If you get a chance to sign, probably sign or stay at a college. Don't bounce around. That bounce around game, I see a lot of kids get involved in it. I've seen a lot of kids who had first round hype who end up being day 3 seniors. Because, I didn't get my playing time right away. I'm going to go to this JUCO, then go to this school. And like in 4 or 5 years, they'll play for 6 different programs somehow. And I don't even know how it works. But you either got to take the money and run, or make sure that you're going to a stable program and you're going to get an opportunity. Be very smart in your decision. I have never seen someone who is successful after going to like 4 different schools. Even
the transfer portal era, I guess we'll test that a little bit. Do you know why guys don't make it from Friends College, Jeff?
I do not.
They spent too much time hanging out in Central Park.
Ooh. Got a coffee problem. They've all got that haircut. They're all wearing Rachel's, and it just makes their teammates not trust them.
Too busy moving furniture and yelling pivot at each other.
They
were on. Yeah, he took a break. He was on a break from playing baseball.
That's what happened those first 2 years. He was on a break.
Yes, exactly. If you know Dan Polenin, get us in touch with him. We'll have him on the show. Just talk about this and how he's good at making coffee and being a bad waiter.
Yeah, again, anyone who is drafted, we would love to have that story. So we'll take anyone come on for a segment or 2, and we can discuss it.
Jeff, you thought we were going to get out of here without one last mention of the World Baseball Classic. You were wrong. The 2013 draft, Jeff, Sicknarf Loopstock. He was on Team Netherlands this year.
Did he have any stolen bases this year? He was kind of fast, right? He could steal things.
He was not.
He had good speed for a catcher, right?
He didn't have good instincts.
Okay. I just remember him being
didn't get good reads.
Athlete. Good athlete, good arm.
Bad reads. Bad
rate. He was everyone loved that name. Everyone loved that name. He was the all-name guy. He was the Itchy Burtz of his draft class. Very sad Itchy Burtz did not get drafted. But that's all for today. We got one more show before I have my spring break. So I'm going to be refreshed next week. So look forward to that. We will be back talking baseball in about 24 hours. So rate and review, download daily. It helps. Make sure you are watching on YouTube and, leave that review. Thank you all for being part of the Locked On Guardians team, and go Guardians go.